The champagne flute slipped from Nyara Quinn's fingers, crystal exploding against polished hardwood. Through the crack in the office door, she watched her future dissolve in real time. Calder sat across from Sterling Hartwick, a tech investor with predator's eyes and a reputation for hostile takeovers. Between them lay contracts, and beside Sterling stood his daughter Celeste, platinum blonde, cold, perfect, MIT PhD. Everything Nyara apparently wasn't. "It's straightforward, Mr. Vaughn," Sterling said, sliding papers forward. $75 million for Vaughn Technologies expansion. In exchange, you marry Celeste, someone who fits your trajectory. Nyara held her breath, waiting for Calder to refuse, to stand, to fight for their 4 years together. But his hand never hesitated. He didn't even look conflicted. One signature. That's all it took to erase everything they'd built. "She's impressive for her background," Calder's father Richard added, "but lacks the pedigree and connections we need for the next phase." For her background. The words hit like a physical blow. Nyara stumbled backward, her heart shattering into as many pieces as the champagne flute. She had to leave, now, before they saw her, before she completely fell apart. But as she turned to flee the Atherton estate, she collided with a solid chest. Strong hands steadied her. She looked up into the face of a distinguished man she'd never seen at any Vaughn family function. Late 40s, devastatingly handsome with silver threading through perfectly styled black hair. Sharp cheekbones, intense dark eyes that seemed to calculate everything in seconds. His charcoal suit was impeccable, and he moved with the kind of dangerous grace that spoke of violence refined into art. "Leaving so soon, Miss Quinn?" His voice was smooth, controlled, lethal. "I'm Baek Hyun-suk, Calder's estranged uncle." He glanced at the door she'd been watching through, then back at her devastated face. A slight, knowing smile crossed his lips. "It appears we both have reasons to make the Vaughns regret their choices. I have a proposition for you." What Nyara didn't know was that Hyun-suk wasn't just Calder's estranged uncle. He was the man who controlled tech empires and criminal networks across 2 continents. The man Richard Vaughn had betrayed 25 years ago. And he'd been watching Nyara for 18 months, waiting for exactly this moment. Before we see what Nyara decides, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Pedri's Love Stories so you don't miss the thrilling episodes we release daily. Hit that notification bell because trust me, you don't want to miss what happens when Nyara hears Hyun-suk's dangerous proposition. Now, let's get into Nyara's story. Front row. His smile was slow, dangerous. "You were magnificent, passionate, brilliant, uncompromising. I've been following your work ever since. Quintech's growth, your TED Talk, your Forbes feature. I've been watching you, Nyara Quinn." The way he said her name made her pulse jump. Not leering, not possessive, just aware. "That's not creepy at all," she managed. "No," he agreed easily. "It's strategic. I've been waiting for the right moment. Tonight provided it." The right moment for what? A proposition. He moved closer, not threatening, just present. "Marry me." Nyara laughed, bitter and sharp. "I just left one engagement. You think I'm looking for another?" "Not an engagement. A partnership. His eyes never left hers. "You want revenge. You want to make the Vaughns choke on their regret. You want access to Asian markets that have been closed to you because of exactly the racism you experienced tonight. I can give you all of that. Unlimited resources, protection, connections that span from Silicon Valley to Seoul, and the satisfaction of watching Calder realize he traded a diamond for broken glass. And what do you get? A brilliant partner to help legitimize my business empire in America, and the destruction of my brother, who betrayed me 25 years ago, much the same way his son just betrayed you." He paused. "I should mention, my business involves certain connections to organized crime. I believe in brutal honesty about who I am." He pulled a card from his pocket. Heavy stock, minimal design. A phone number, nothing else. 72 hours, Nayara. Think about it. Research me. You'll find I'm dangerous, but I keep my word." He turned to leave, then looked back. Calder is a fool who couldn't see the diamond in his hands. His loss could be our beginning. Then he was gone, dissolving back into shadows like he'd never existed. Nayara looked at the card in her hand, blood from her cut smearing one corner. What the hell had just happened? Nayara didn't sleep for 3 days. She locked herself in her home office with espresso, determination, and every search engine known to humanity. If she was going to consider this insane proposition, she needed facts, hard data, the truth behind the devastatingly handsome man who'd materialized from shadows with an offer straight out of a crime thriller. What she found made her hands shake. Baek Hyun-sak, $3.1 billion net worth. The number alone was staggering, but the portfolio was more fascinating. Tech manufacturing across 3 countries, luxury hotels in Tokyo and Singapore, real estate empires, venture capital firms with stakes in half the startups she admired. All legitimate, all impressively built. Then there were the rumors. Information brokerage, protection services, smuggling operations that moved everything from art to technology. Nothing proven, everything whispered. The kind of power that lived in shadows. She found the Korean news article at 2 a.m. on the second night, her eyes burning, translation software struggling with 25-year-old dialect. The headline translated roughly to "Business Partners, Brother Betrayal." The story unfolded like a tragedy. Baek Hyun-suk and his younger brother, Richard, partners in a Seoul tech manufacturing company. Then Hyun-suk's wife died in a car accident, suspicious circumstances never proven. While Hyun-suk drowned in grief, Richard embezzled everything, their shared accounts, their company funds, their future. He disappeared to America with enough money to start fresh, leaving his older brother with nothing but devastation and debt. Hyun-suk had rebuilt from less than zero. The articles that followed chronicled his rise, strategic, ruthless, brilliant. He'd clawed his way up from the streets, creating an empire that made Richard's comfortable American life look like pocket change. The Forbes Korea interview was dated 5 years ago. The journalist had asked about his personal life, why someone so powerful remained unmarried. His answer stopped her cold. "I lost the love of my life and my faith in family the same year. Since then, I've built walls instead of bridges. Perhaps that was necessary for survival, but lonely nonetheless." Lonely nonetheless. She stared at the quote until her vision blurred. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about man who'd been betrayed by the person he trusted most, who'd spent 25 years building armor around his heart. Her phone rang. Calder. Again. He'd called 17 times in 3 days. She'd ignored every one. On the 18th call, she answered. "Nayara, thank God. We need to talk. I made a mistake." "You made several." Her voice was ice.
Sterling pulled the investment. He said I hesitated on the final contract, showed weakness. The deal's off. Calder's words tumbled out, desperate. Which means we can fix this. We can go back to how things were. She laughed, bitter and sharp. You mean I'm your backup plan? How romantic. That's not, I love you. I always have. My father pressured me. Sterling was threatening and I panicked. But I choose you, Nyara. I choose us. No, you chose 75 million. You only want me back because your first choice fell through. She let the silence stretch. You are a coward who trades people like commodities. Don't call again. She blocked his number and immediately dialed the number on the card she'd been carrying for 72 hours. Hyun-suk answered on the first ring. Nyara, I have questions. I expected you would. Have you killed people? She didn't dance around it. Yes, 4 men, all in defense of my people, never for profit or cruelty. I can live with those choices. Do you control illegal operations?
Yes. Information brokerage, protection services, some smuggling. But I have lines I won't cross. No drugs, no human trafficking, nothing that harms the vulnerable. In this marriage, what do you really get? A pause. Legitimacy in America, a brilliant partner, revenge against my brother, and the genuine pleasure of working with someone I admire. I won't lie and say this doesn't benefit me, but I want partnership, Nyara, not possession. She closed her eyes. When can we meet? I'll send a car in 1 hour. The restaurant was empty except for them. Hyun-suk had reserved the entire place, a sleek Korean fusion spot in San Francisco where minimalist design met traditional elements. Nyara arrived in jeans and a blazer, refusing to dress up for what was essentially a business negotiation. He wore slacks and a black shirt, no tie, looking somehow more dangerous in casual clothes than he had in that perfect suit. You came, he said, standing when she entered. I said I would. She sat across from him, meeting his eyes. But I have terms. I expected nothing less. He poured her wine, something red and probably obscenely expensive. Speak freely. Over galbi and japchae, they negotiated like the business partners they'd become. Quintek stayed completely separate and independent. Her company, her decisions, no interference. Prenup would protect both parties generously, drafted by separate attorneys. Complete honesty about anything affecting the other, no surprises. Separate bedrooms initially. Time to see if this could become real beyond strategy. He agreed to everything without hesitation. 3 days, Nyara said, surprising herself. Let's get married in 3 days, before I overthink this into paralysis. His smile was slow, genuine. SF City Hall, 3 p.m. I'll handle the logistics. 3 days later, Nyara stood in City Hall wearing a cream silk dress she'd found in a boutique near her apartment. Not a wedding gown exactly, but beautiful, elegant, powerful. Hyun-suk wore a navy suit that made him look like power incarnate, all sharp lines and controlled intensity. The ceremony was small, just them, the officiant, and 2 witnesses Hyun-suk provided, an older Korean woman who looked at Nyara with warm approval, and a man in an expensive suit who radiated barely contained violence. You may kiss, the officiant said. It was supposed to be perfunctory, quick, professional, but when Hyun-suk's lips met hers, something ignited, heat and promise and possibility. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone, and she felt the kiss everywhere. When they broke apart, his eyes were dark, intense. Nyara back. It suits you. Her throat tightened. Thank you. They cooked dinner together, his mother's recipes, he explained, bulgogi and kimchi jjigae that filled the kitchen with warmth and spice. She told him about foster care, about building Quintech from nothing, about every door she had to kick open. He shared his story, his wife's death, Richard's betrayal, rebuilding from streets to empire. "Why didn't you remarry?" she asked. "I was building an empire and becoming someone dangerous. That's not a life you inflict on someone you love." He looked at her steadily. "But you chose this, knowing who I am. That makes you different." "Different how?" "Strong enough to stand beside darkness without being consumed by it." He refilled her wine. To brutal honesty. To partnership. Their glasses met with a crystalline ring, sealing something that felt far more binding than the papers they'd signed hours before. 3 weeks passed in suspended reality that felt both surreal and surprisingly natural. Nayara moved her essential belongings into the penthouse: clothes, books, the framed photo of her foster mother who believed in her when no one else did. The penthouse absorbed her presence like it had been waiting for her all along. Quintech required explanations she wasn't ready to give. Personal developments, she told her team, which was technically true. Her business partner, Simone, sharp, protective, the sister she'd chosen at Stanford, cornered her in the office kitchen. "Personal developments? Girl, you disappeared for 3 days and came back wearing a ring that costs more than my car." Simone's eyes narrowed. "What happened with Calder?" "We're done. Permanently." Pause. "And I got married." Simone's coffee mug hit the counter. "You did what?" "It's complicated." "Complicated is forgetting to text back. Marriage is a whole different category." But Simone hugged her anyway. "Are you okay? Are you safe?" Surprisingly, yes to both. Evenings became Nayara's favorite part of existing. She and Hyunsuk cooked together, his hands skilled and confident, teaching her his mother's recipes. They watched Korean dramas on the massive couch, him explaining cultural context while she teased him about predictable plots. "Let me guess," she'd say. "The chaebol hero and the plucky girl from nowhere fall in love despite family opposition. That's every drama." "Exactly." They talked for hours about technology, philosophy, dreams they'd never shared with anyone. He introduced her to carefully vetted associates, mostly legitimate business contacts, though she recognized the underlying power dynamics, the way men deferred to him, the respect that bordered on fear. She showed him Quintech's projects. He offered surprisingly insightful feedback about Asian market applications, connections she could leverage, cultural considerations she'd missed. And the chemistry. God, the chemistry was undeniable. Lingering touches when passing dishes, his hand on her back when they walked, warm and possessive. The way her pulse jumped when he smiled, rare, genuine expressions that transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. How she'd catch him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch and her skin flush. But Hyunsuk never pushed, never assumed. He was perfectly, frustratingly respectful. 3 weeks in, watching some noir film on the couch, sitting close enough that she felt his warmth radiating through the space between them, Nayara broke. "Why haven't you tried anything?" The words tumbled out. "We're married."
He turned, his gaze molten. "Because when you're ready, you won't ask questions. You'll simply take what you want." His voice dropped, intimate. "You're not passive, Naira. When you decide you want me, I'll know." The challenge ignited something in her. "And if I decided right now? Then I'd ask if you're sure this is what you truly want, not what you think you should want." She moved closer, close enough to feel his breath. "I'm sure." Something shifted in his expression, that careful control giving way to raw desire. "Then come here." She moved into his space and he cupped her face, searching her eyes one last time before kissing her. This wasn't like City Hall. This was fire, desperation, 3 weeks of tension shattering into heat and need and want. Their first night together was intense, passionate, surprisingly tender. He touched her like she was precious and powerful simultaneously, and when she woke the next morning in his bed, she found him watching her with an expression so vulnerable it made her chest ache. "No regrets?" he asked quietly. "None." "Good." He traced her jawline. "Because I need you to know, I'm already falling in love with you. If this is just physical for you, I'll manage, but you should know where I stand." Her breath caught. She realized with sudden clarity that she felt the same. Somewhere between Korean dramas and late-night conversations and the way he looked at her like she hung the moon, she'd fallen too. "Tonight," he said, breaking the moment gently, "is the Tech Elite Gala, our public debut." She smiled, something fierce and sharp. Time to show the world what the Vaughns lost. His answering smile was predatory. Exactly. The Fairmont Hotel ballroom dripped with wealth and ambition, San Francisco's Tech Elite Gala, where venture capitalists circled like sharks and fortunes changed hands over champagne. Naira stepped from the car in a custom black gown that hugged every curve, a daring slit climbing her thigh, backless design showcasing rich, dark skin. She looked expensive, powerful, untouchable. Hyun-sok in his tuxedo was devastating. Together, they looked like power and danger and money incarnate. Eyes tracked them the moment they entered. Conversations paused. Naira felt the weight of attention, but this time it wasn't the usual scrutiny she faced in these spaces. This was something else entirely. "Mrs. Bach, my wife, CEO of Quintech," Hyun-sok introduced her to a venture capitalist who'd ghosted her emails for 6 months. The man practically tripped over himself shaking her hand. It happened again and again. Investors, tech giants, politicians, everyone treated her with respect bordering on reverence. After years of fighting for a seat at these tables, she finally had it. The irony wasn't lost on her. They respected her because she was his. His power reflected onto her like borrowed light. She should have felt diminished. Instead, she felt strategic. She'd use this, build from it, make it hers. At the bar, everything shifted. Hyun-sok. Richard Vaughn stood 3 feet away, face draining of color like he'd seen a ghost, which, in a way, he had. "Hello, little brother." Hyun-sok's voice was pleasant, cordial, absolutely lethal. "It's been a while." Richard's eyes landed on Naira, confusion flickering across his features. "Miss Quinn, what are you doing here with—" "Mrs. Bach, actually." Naira held up her left hand, emerald catching light like green fire. "I go by my married name now." Richard staggered slightly. "You married my brother?" "Your brother?" Naira smiled. "I prefer to think of him as my husband." "Naira!" Calder appeared through the crowd, Celeste Sterling on his arm, platinum and ice and everything he'd chosen over her. His expression lit up when he saw Naira, like the past month hadn't happened. "I've been trying to reach you. We need to talk." Then he saw Hyun-sok, saw Naira's hand in his, saw the ring. "What the hell is this?" "Calder, meet my husband, Bak Hyun-sok." Naira's voice was calm, controlled. "Though you believe you're related." "Related? I don't—" Calder looked at his father. "Dad?" "He's my older brother." Richard's voice was hollow. "Your uncle." Calder's face cycled through colors like a malfunctioning traffic light. "You married my uncle? Are you insane?" "Careful." Hyun-sok's voice dropped to something cold and dangerous. "That's my wife you're addressing." "She was engaged to me. We were together for 4 years." "Were you?" Naira tilted her head. "I seem to recall you trading me for $75 million and a more suitable wife. How's that working out, by the way?" Celeste, still on Calder's arm, smirked. Naira stepped forward, and the crowd that had gathered went silent. "You know what's funny, Calder? I built Quintech from nothing. $200 million in valuation, Forbes under 30, contracts across 3 continents, while you inherited everything Daddy gave you." She paused. "Real power comes from creation, not legacy, and I'm exactly where I belong, with a man who sees my worth." Hyun-sok stepped beside her, his presence commanding the room.
Speaking of creation, I've just finalized a $200 million investment in Asian eye markets. Should be quite competitive with Vaughn Technologies' expansion plans. He looked at Richard. That contract you were counting on securing in Seoul? Already mine, little brother. Richard's face went ashen. Calder looked between them, realization dawning. This was all revenge? No, Naira said softly. This is justice. There's a difference. She took Hyun-Sok's hand and he raised his champagne flute to destroying the past. Naira's glass met his with a crystalline ring and building our future. They walked away, leaving the Vaughns standing in ruins of their own making, while the ballroom buzzed with the story that would dominate tech media for weeks. The marriage announcement went viral within hours. Tech blogs picked it up first, then business journals, then society pages hungry for scandal. Quintech CEO marries mysterious Korean tech mogul, dominated headlines. The fascinating family connection, carefully worded to avoid libel, sent speculation into overdrive. Naira's phone became a weapon of mass interruption. Investors who'd ghosted her for months suddenly wanted meetings. Partnership offers from Korean and Japanese tech firms flooded her inbox. Companies that had politely declined her previous inquiries now treated her like visiting royalty. Simone sat across from her at Quintech's office, scrolling through the deluge of requests. It's the balk name. People see you're connected to serious power and suddenly you're worth their time. She looked up, expression sharp. It's gross, but let's use it. Quintech's valuation jumped to $400 million within a week. Contracts Naira had been chasing for months materialized overnight. Doors that were closed swung open with embarrassing enthusiasm. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt complicated. Married life was more intoxicating than she'd expected. Hyun-Sok was attentive without being controlling, generous without being patronizing. He genuinely cared about her work, asked questions that showed he'd been listening, remembered details she'd mentioned in passing. "Your pronunciation is terrible," he'd say, kissing her forehead. "Your face is terrible," she'd counter, making him laugh. She discovered his love of old vinyl records, Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Korean jazz singers from the 70s, his extensive collection of noir films, the way he cooked when he was thinking through problems, chopping vegetables with surgical precision while his mind worked. But shadows remained. Sometimes his phone rang late at night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., the hour when nothing good ever happened. He'd take calls in Korean, his voice transforming into something hard and cold. She'd hear him through the walls, that dangerous edge returning, reminding her who he was beyond their domestic bubble. Men in expensive suits visited for meetings in his study. She was never invited. They'd arrive, faces carefully neutral, and leave either relieved or terrified. She never asked. One night, she woke at 2 a.m. to use the bathroom and found his dress shirt in the sink. White fabric, dark stains, blood. Her heart stopped. "Business complications," his voice came from behind her, making her jump. He stood in the doorway, bare-chested, expression unreadable. "Nothing for you to worry about." "That's a lot of blood." "Not mine." He moved past her, gathering the shirt. "I handled a situation that required physical persuasion. It's dealt with now." "Someone hurt you?" "Someone tried." His smile was sharp, humorless. "They won't try again." She should have been horrified, should have demanded details, drawn lines, established boundaries. Instead, she just nodded, because she knew who she married, knew what he was. This wasn't a surprise, just a reminder. "Come back to bed," he said softly, the dangerous edge fading. "Please." She went, let him pull her close, his warmth familiar and steadying. But sleep came slowly, her mind circling the truth she couldn't escape. She was in love with him, deeply, genuinely, possibly irrevocably. But there was a whole world of his life she didn't fully understand yet, a world of blood and violence and power that operated in shadows, and sooner or later, those shadows would reach for her too. 2 months into the marriage, Naira came home from a Quintech investor meeting to find Calder waiting in her building's lobby. Her building, the one with supposedly excellent security, the one where Hyun-Sok had personally vetted every guard.
"How did you get in here?" She stopped 10 feet away, keys positioned between her fingers.
Security let me up. Old habit. I said I was your fiancé. He smiled, but it was wrong. Unsteady. Dark circles bruised the skin under his eyes, his expensive clothes rumpled like he'd slept in them, or hadn't slept at all. 5 minutes, Nyara. That's all I'm asking. No. Please. He stepped forward. She stepped back. I love you. I made a mistake, a horrible, stupid mistake, but I've ended things with Celeste. Told my father I don't care about his approval anymore. The Sterling deal fell through anyway, so there's no reason we can't. Too little, too late. Is it him? Calder's voice rose, drawing attention from the concierge desk. Are you actually in love with my uncle, or is this just an act to hurt me? This conversation is over. Because I know you, Nyara. He moved closer, and something in his eyes made her pulse spike with warning. I know you wouldn't actually fall for some gangster old enough to be your father. You're too smart for that, too principled. You don't know me at all. This is revenge. His voice pitched higher, desperation bleeding through. You're pretending to be happy with him to punish me. Admit it. I'm leaving. She turned toward the elevator. His hand clamped around her wrist, yanking her back. Pain flared where his fingers dug into bone. Let go of me. Not until you tell me the truth. His grip tightened, bruising. You can't actually love him. This has to be fake. You're using him to get back at me, to make me jealous, and it worked. I'm here. I'm choosing you. So just admit this is all an act and we can... You're hurting me. You're not really happy with him. His eyes were wild, unhinged, pupils dilated. She realized with cold, creeping horror that this wasn't just desperation. Calder had been following her, watching her, obsessing. How many times had she felt eyes on her these past weeks, dismissed it as paranoia? Calder, let go right now or I swear, admit it. He shook her, and her keys clattered to the marble floor. Admit you're not in love with him. Admit this is fake. You can't possibly want to be with a criminal, a killer, someone who... And if she can't admit it? The voice cut through the lobby like a blade through silk, deep, controlled, absolutely lethal. Calder's grip loosened. Nyara's head whipped toward the entrance. Yun Suk stood near the automatic doors, and the expression on his face made her blood run cold. Not angry, something beyond anger, something primal and dangerous that lived in his bones. He was flanked by 2 men in dark suits, the same ones from their wedding, the ones who radiated controlled violence like other people radiated warmth. Yun Suk moved forward with predatory grace, his eyes never leaving Calder's hand on Nyara's wrist. You have 3 seconds to release my wife, he said quietly, before I break every bone in your hand. Your wife, Calder spat, but his grip loosened slightly. You bought her, like you buy everything else, with blood money and threats. 2 seconds. Calder released Nyara, stumbling backward, but he wasn't done. The wildness in his eyes had metastasized into something uglier, rage mixed with entitlement, delusion wrapped in desperation. You think you're so powerful? You're nothing but a thug in an expensive suit. Nyara deserves better than a criminal twice her age who will probably get her killed. He didn't finish. Yun Suk moved faster than Nyara thought possible, one moment standing still, the next grabbing Calder by the throat and slamming him against the marble wall. Not hard enough to seriously injure, but hard enough to terrify, hard enough that Calder's head cracked against stone and his eyes went wide with genuine fear. Listen very carefully, Yun Suk said, his voice deadly calm, the kind of calm that preceded violence, that promised it. If you ever touch her, if you ever come near her, if you even think her name too loudly, I will make you disappear. Calder's hands scrabbled at Yun Suk's wrist, finding no purchase. Not quickly, not cleanly. Yun Suk's voice never rose, never wavered. You'll simply cease to exist, and no one, not your father, not Sterling, not anyone will ever find enough of you to bury. Do you understand? Calder nodded frantically, face going purple.
Hyun-suk released him. Calder collapsed against the wall, gasping, one hand rubbing his throat. He stumbled toward the exit, but paused at the door, looking back at Nyara with something disturbing in his eyes, something that said this wasn't over. "You'll regret this," he wheezed, "both of you." Then he was gone, disappearing into the San Francisco night. The lobby was silent except for Nyara's ragged breathing. The concierge had conveniently found somewhere else to be. Smart man. Hyun-suk turned to her, and his expression transformed instantly, from lethal to concerned, from predator to protector. "Are you hurt?" She held up her wrist where Calder's fingers left angry red marks, already darkening to bruises. Hyun-suk's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. "I should have... You protected me. That's what matters." He pulled her into his arms, and she felt him shaking slightly with residual fury. His heart hammered against her cheek, adrenaline still flooding his system. She'd just seen a glimpse of what he was capable of, the violence he kept leashed beneath expensive suits and careful control. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt safe. One of his men approached, speaking quietly in Korean. Hyun-suk responded in the same language, his tone clipped, authoritative. The man nodded and pulled out his phone, already making calls. "What did you tell him?" Nyara asked. "To have Calder followed, to document everything." Hyun-suk's hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. "We need to go upstairs, now. There's something I need to tell you about why Calder's behavior is more dangerous than it seems." "More dangerous than stalking and assault?" His expression went grim. "Much more dangerous, because what you just witnessed wasn't heartbreak or obsession." He guided her toward the elevator, his arm around her waist. "That was the beginning of something that could get you killed, and I need you to understand exactly what we're dealing with before it's too late." Okay, but the way Hyun-suk handled that, I am living. But don't think this story is over, family. We've got Calder losing his mind, Hyun-suk's dark past catching up, and Nyara about to discover exactly how deep his world goes. Make sure you're subscribed to Pedri's Love Stories, because part 2 is going to be wild. Drop a comment, Team Hyun-suk, or are we worried about Nyara? Hit that like button, and I'll see you in the next one.